Setback for Democrats on Capitol Hill. What would have been their landmark voting rights bill failed 52-48 in the Senate last night, with 2 Democrats joining all 50 Republicans in opposing a rules change to push it through.
Okay, so Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema did the only thing they were ever going to do, what we knew they were going to do. They once again sided with the Republicans to stop any reform whatsoever to the filibuster. So forget all the things they've said in the past about various reforms that they're in favor of. I know, they're on the record. They're in favor of those things. It doesn't matter. They're not going to allow their shield to even be chipped away at. So no voting rights, no anything that would require the Senate's participation. They are against it. Really fast though, Francesca, I do want to just touch base with, and I don't know who that anchor was, and this is not about him. It's been all over mainstream media. It is not that he is wrong that this is a setback for the Democrats, but is that the most important group to identify as having been set back by this? Like, yes, politically it's not great for them, but it's not great for America, for the voters, for our democracy. But to say that is to imply things and opine about what's been going on in terms of voter suppression. And I think a lot of like straight news shows don't want to even stray a millimeter from their objectivity and identify that the Republicans are clearly at war with our democracy.
No, yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, and also not only that, it ices people out from engaging in a conversation about what's going on in DC, right? It's like, well, the Democrats have scored and they lost a couple points. I mean, it's just a game. It's a horse and a dog and pony show, a horse race, and you only cover that aspect. You're not actually covering what will this mean for you in your state. You might have to wait longer to vote. You might not get a mail-in ballot. That will directly affect issues that are happening in your counties, in your homes, in your communities. No. We don't talk about anything of that. We don't talk about the importance of voting rights. Like, why not just give us a little flashback about how hard it was to even get all Americans the right to vote? But no, it's looking bad for the Dems. And yeah, it is a cynical and contextual-less, context-free way to talk about this.
100%, yeah, it's safe, and that's fine. Again, that's not the biggest issue here. The biggest issue is all of the other issues that we will not have progress on because of Manchin and Sinema, and also obviously the Republicans. Do we need to acknowledge that? None of them were gonna sign on to this. That was obvious to us, even if Joe Manchin pretended all last year that it wasn't obvious to him. By the way, credit to BC Trumpet in the Twitch chat who says, I was in so much suspense trying to figure out who the 2 were. But actually, that raises an interesting point. Very briefly, only 2 voted against the proposed rules change. Do we believe that only 2 were actually against it, or were they, as usual, the only 2? Saying brave enough, that doesn't seem right. I would say just transparent enough, obvious enough to vote against it. Or were there in fact others, whether it's Carper, Tester, or Shaheen, or whoever, that also, if Manchin and Sinema weren't there, or if they changed their mind or whatever, as if they have a mind to change, would we have instead had Carper and Tester? Those would have been the 2. What do you think?
I don't know. I think it's a really good question. I mean, obviously, I think what this proves is that the vote was taken, even though Democrats knew, Chuck Schumer knew he's been failing at his job, and that Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin have only further dug in their heels. And guess what? They like the negative press. They like all this shine. They love being, sort of having the whole world, the nation wait on bated breath for them to curtsy and say, no, screw the working class, right? So we knew that. So it's amazing to me that we're still taking these votes. And I get it, maybe you need to grandstand a little, you gotta, make your points out there. Cory Booker's gotta stand up, Sheldon Whitehouse gotta talk about dark money, which I think is great. But at the same time, these are people who are beyond shame. They're so soaked in corporate money, it doesn't matter, they love it. And what's crazy to me, you're talking about running cover, is that don't you realize this is not the Build Back Better Act. This is voting rights. These are your voters. This is supposedly your base. This is the base that gave you this razor thin majority in the Senate in the first place. And now you're going to deliberately undermine what actually brought you into power in the first place? It boggles my mind. And again, are you paid to lose, or does losing just like give you an advantage?
I think the issue is that they are paid and they don't much care.
And
some of them just want to stay for a long time. That's their career path. I want to be here forever. Manchin doesn't care. Manchin probably could beat off a primary challenge. And if not, he'd just run for governor. And if not, he'd just be a coal millionaire. Sinema thinks she's gonna run for president. Like, they don't even care if they lose. We have been stripped of every possible ramification for them.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.